My name is Kieran Davis, and this is a brief rundown of my Max patch. The video source that I'm using is the camera on the Mac system that I'm working on. In order to get this, I'm just using a jit.grab. There is also a section to drop in any video files that you might want. I'm just using one from the Max library at the moment. These are both going into a jit.xfade, so you can switch between them with a live.dial. This is then going into various visual effects to adjust the brightness, contrast, saturation. I've got this set up with bypass systems, so you can have them on or off without affecting the other ones. We've got things to decrease the resolution, some things to add or take away distortion and gain, jit.slide, which just gives a bit of an after image to any movement on the screen, jit.op to have a color layer over the top, and this is then going into another jit.xfade in order to have a visualization of an audio wave over the top. This is then going into another control for brightness, contrast, and saturation. This is the master control section for this, just to brighten it up again, because some of the visual effects may dull the image. This then goes into a jit.world with appropriate aspects applied to it, visible, high res, full screen, etc. If we take a look at the audio section, I have 3 different inputs of audio. We have a mic input, just a sine wave working at 440 Hz, and a section to drop in audio files. This is controlled via live.menu, so you can pick which one you want it to work off. This is then being sent to an audio out in order to go through the various audio effects. We have EQ, delay, and modulation. I won't go into the details on the audio effects because I have just used effects that I've built in previous patches. This is going to a selector tilde to send the audio to the reactive section in order to have one working before the fader for the visual effects and one working for after the fader for visual effects. This allows you to decide whether the visual effects are going to work with the audio effects or separate from them. And again, we just have a live menu in order to pick between those. If we look at where the audio is being sent, if we look up here, I'm using peak amp tildes in order to get the effects on the visuals. This is basically, they react with how loud the music or audio is. I have various ones set up and the sensitivity dials tuned to the specific visual parameters that they're going to be part of. There's 4 of them, and as you can see, you've got send P1, RP1, RP2, and so on. And this is just to tweak it to work better with the parameters that they're being applied to. Let's have a look. If we look over here, this is where I have set up for the audio wave overlay. It's just going into, we got a receive audio from the audio section. It's going into jit.catch into a jit.transpose. This is then going into a matrix, and it is shooting out a visual representation of the audio wave. This can be represented in points, lines, area, bipolar area, or bar. Personally, I quite like area. Over here, this just changes the way in which it's represented. It also changes the way in which the shape overlay works, well, how it reacts anyway. If we look at the shape overlay, we have jit.gl.gridShape. This just applies a shape over the top. We have aspects to change these, the color, have whatever color you want on this. You can pick what shape you want, put it as a cube. That's not the best one for cube. Sphere. Yeah. This is being sent down into a jit.gl mesh, which is being sent to the main jit.world via a draw to shaper. I've set the name for the jit.world to shaper, so that will overlay on the top, and then we just have aspects for the shape, like how it's being drawn, and we can take the shape out entirely by dropping the size to 0, so you can have the shape be whatever size you want over the top of your image. If we look back over to the jit.xfade for the visualization of the audio wave, we have it coming in here, and the saturation is set to 0 to take the yellow color out of the audio wave. Then it's going into a jit.op to overlay color over the top, so you can control what color you want the audio wave to be represented at. Now, if we have a look in presentation mode, we have my lovely face, but it's not important. We have on-off switches for each parameter. So if we turn this on, bring up the brightness, bring up the contrast, it's just your regular controls. That's for each visual parameter. We then have buttons on the top, which is the audio reactive on-off switches, and you can pick each parameter and you can turn them to either on or off to react with the audio. So for example, if I were to play this drum loop, it would help if I had something actually. There we go. Not sure what happened there. As you can see, the brightness, contrast, and saturation are all reacting with the audio. And we can change the sensitivity of this. And we have it set to post fader, so we can make it more aggressive with the music. We can set it to pre-fader. It doesn't matter what we do with this fader, what effects we have on, it'll just be set to the same. You can drop any file you want into the audio section. So I'm just going to take a file that I have here, and you literally just drag it, drop it in. There it is in there. It's the same for the visuals. If I just play this, we can see how the dial works. We can fade in and out of this. The shape is overlaid over the top. So just bring this in. the X fade on the waveform. We'll just have a look at that. And have that flashing in. The slide control. Just move my head around. You can see what that's doing. Layer color over the top. The gain control, if we bring this down, you can see what it's doing. You get quite a fun effect with that. This is the downsampling, and this will react also with you get a very jittery effect on there. So if we set all of these going, you get some pretty aggressive but quite interesting visuals. And this can work quite well with a specific track, depending on what you want, really. So I'm just going to play a short track through and mess with some of the visual parameters. Well, you get the idea. Yeah, that has been my Max Patch. Thanks for watching.